Hey, welcome everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Get Inspired and Live in Your Power. And as always, we have another amazing guest with us today. I actually met Serenity Iris probably about, 3 weeks ago, something like that, 3 or 4 weeks ago at an event, at a live event that we were at. And we were, I think, spiritually drawn together. We ended up sitting next to each other at lunch, and I just really resonated with what she was producing in the world, what the value that she was giving in the world. And I think she felt the same about me. And so it just was a really great connection, and super excited to have her on my podcast and for you to be able to learn from her and learn from her experience, from her story. And I'm going to share a little bit about her, give a little bit of background, and then we will go ahead and jump in. So welcome, Serenity. Thank you for being here.
Oh, it's my pleasure to be here.
Thank you. So what Serenity does is she helps people live their dreams in a healthy, wealthy, loving way so that the world comes alive. I love that statement. She helps driven entrepreneurs feel healthier in their body, mind, and spirit with her proven system. Your Healthy Success is the name of her system. And this helps them to grow profits without the burnout and enjoy more free time, which who doesn't want that? That's amazing. Serenity Iris is your Healthy Success mentor. And I thought this was really interesting. She has a #1 bestseller, but it is a new release international bestseller. And the name of her book is Your Healthy Success. She is also a speaker and a former naturopathic doctor. Serenity is known as the mindset solution and helps entrepreneurs and practitioners go from feeling stuck to getting to the next levels of success in a healthy way. She helps people develop their assets of great health, the power of your mind, with confidence, clarity, and calmness. And she will show you that health is wealth and that money is in the mindset. So all of that is totally amazing. Serenity, welcome. Thank you so much for being here.
Oh, thanks, Mylene. I love speaking with you as always and just sharing.
Wonderful. I want to have you tell a little bit more about how you work with people, how you help those people that are stuck to be able to, using your system, help them to really capitalize on those assets of health, wealth, and love. Health, wealth, and love, and using the power of your mind, those assets.
I find that the entry point is often just whatever someone is facing right here and now. What is that lesson that's showing up for them that they're meant to learn and grow from? So by lesson, it can be in the form of a challenge or a dip in their life or a symptom, whether it's in their health or relationship or business. And that's like the doorway. That's the entry point, because when someone gets really honest with themselves, and then ultimately with me, if I'm going to be helping them, that's when we know what we're dealing with, what we're wanting to shift. And then we can look at, okay, what are the aspects within that need to shift so that the aspects on the outside, the circumstances, the life, the embodiment of it then shifts. So of course, I love to know what people's dreams are, because it's good to look at where you are, but where you want to be going toward as well. So I would say those two components are really key. And then from there, we don't really have enough time to cover the whole system, but in the middle, the whole process is the system that I help people with. But when people come to me with some clarity about what they want, or sometimes people want help gaining that clarity, we help them with the clarity of what they want and desire. And then we take an honest look at, what are the challenges or what are the lessons that are being experienced right now. And then we dive in.
Wonderful. I love that. As you're talking about these lessons, I've been there before, where I am I'm feeling like I'm at the bottom of a dry well,
Mhm.
and I'm looking up and there's like no way out. But what you're saying is that when people are in the bottom of that dry well, when it looks like there's no way out, there's a doorway. This is the bottom of the well is actually the doorway
Yes.
to all of this, learning the lesson and getting beyond that and having that
Mhm.
outcome, the circumstances happen
Mhm.
for you.
Totally. And I saw this so clearly with my mom decades ago when she sat us down and let us know that her cancer had returned. And at that point, I was just a student. I was not, into mindset mentoring or anything like this. She let us know it had returned. And my first thought was, oh, well, I want to ask her what her dream is. I wasn't going to be asking her what the prognosis was or, any of the treatment type details, but I just turned around and I asked her, so what's your dream? And she was sort of taken aback because probably for a number of reasons, probably first because it was an unusual response. But then she said, well, Japanese women aren't asked about their dreams. I was like, what is she saying? Like half a nation is not asked about their dreams. And so I said, well, I'm asking you, I want to know, I'm curious. And I knew deep down within me that if she had something to live for, that her life would have much more meaning, that it would have much more quality and maybe even prolong her life. So she thought about it and said she wanted to be a professional full-time writer. She was just dabbling. It was just a hobby at that point. And so I really encouraged her to do it full-time. And in that moment, there was a lot of resistance and she came up with all these reasons. And she just basically said, well, I can't do that. Okay. So we left it. And then a few months later, she calls me and says, I did it. I figured out a way to write full time. And it was just such a beautiful moment for both of us because she was allowing herself to be, empowered, stepping into her power, into her joy, into her passion. And I know for sure that it added great quality of life in her last years of life for sure. That's exactly what we're talking about here is that desire and that dream to propel you forward and also to look at what are those areas of resistance and maybe you're at your bottom. You don't have to reach rock bottom, by the way, to turn things around. It could just be this pivotal moment for you where you decide that, no, I'm going to go in a different direction. No, I am going to let myself go for what I really, really want.
Wow, amazing. Just that one question. I just can see the power of that. And I
Mhm.
had something written down here that for entrepreneurs, you help them give themselves a raise, getting them
Mhm.
healthy with mind, body, and spirit to avoid burnout and also lifting, welcoming more money into their lives. And I'm just seeing that you did that for your mom. You empowered her to give herself a raise. And when I'm thinking of
Mhm.
raise in this context, it's not like a dollar per hour raise. I'm talking about really raise yourself up. You give yourself
Sure.
permission to
Yeah.
raise yourself up and to get healthy with mind, body, and spirit. And wow, to give them a reason to live, give them something to live
Mhm.
for. That's so powerful. I mean, that right there that's a reason for people to want to work with you right there
Mhm.
is to know the right questions to ask. That's such a powerful example. Thank you for sharing that. And I know we're actually going to be coming back to that story as your mom continued on and was able to give herself a raise and to gain more health and life for a few more years. And then the end of her life, I know there was a pivotal moment for you. And so we're going to be coming back to that. But before we do that, I really would love to have you talk a little bit about your life before, because you shared with me about family situation that totally changed your financial situation, and talk a little bit about that because I know our listeners
Sure.
really relate
Mhm.
to that.
It's almost like the chronology doesn't really matter, but I grew up, we were poor. We were poor. Like, we always did have a roof over our head and enough to eat. but that was it. No extras, no fancy anything, just the bare bones, minimal, only what we needed. And like all people and all parents, they do the best they can with what they had. And so if they didn't have any more to give, it was just, for whatever reason, and I'm grateful for that experience because there's a universal law of polarity. So when you know what it feels like to live without, or having never been asked, well, what is it that you really, really want? Because if you want something, then that could be really expensive. Then there's an even greater appreciation for the polar opposite of that. So when you do earn it, or when you do allow yourself, like, I allowed myself to desire and to want, and that was a thing for me to get to that point, a process. So, watching my mom go through with her health challenges, and basically in her last days, I did have this kind of spiritual knowing that there definitely is much more than just the physical. There's much more beyond what we can see and feel and touch. And I just felt this visceral connection with that. And I didn't quite have the language for that until a little bit later on. But in the journey, in the chronology of it, when I then had my own family, there was a major upheaval and life transition where I was looking at needing to replace a second income really quickly, and it wasn't happening. I basically had my back against the wall and was not providing for my daughter in the way that I wanted. And I just felt like, oh my goodness, am I repeating a generational cycle of being poor? And it just felt really gut-wrenching. And I had this moment where I was sitting in my daughter's dance recital, and it was just so beautiful. I cry easy, I tear up easily. The beautiful music was playing. They're in their gorgeous costumes and the movements, and it was very touching. And I just felt like, oh my gosh, I'm not providing for her what she could be flourishing in with her potential, because for years all she wanted to do is to dance. We were able to provide her with 1 hour a week in a community dance school, which was very sweet. But I knew that if she wanted to go beyond that, it wasn't going to cut it. So I just felt like, oh my goodness, what am I doing? Am I just repeating, only providing, the bare bones? And so I made a decision in that chair, in that recital, where I was going to turn it around, because I was going to model for her what's possible, what I knew in my heart to be possible, but it wasn't modeled for me or demonstrated for me growing up. And it took a lot of courage to just really transform and shift that. And so worthwhile too, after I was able to provide a ton of dance lessons. We were driving all over the city, and she was super happy. So it is possible. So I guess the lesson for me is that I don't have to become my past, or how I grew up, and that it really just does take that decision to turn things around.
Wow, that's amazing. I feel like you are the perfect example of this, because like you mentioned before, the culture that you came from, the Japanese culture that you came from, it wasn't a culture where nobody asked you what your dreams were, what to have your desires and your wants put out in front, and to have that be something that you could really ask for. But you made the decision to break that generational paradigm, and even a societal paradigm, to actually ask, what do I desire and want? And you took it even one step further, another layer deep with the generational. What does my daughter desire and want? And how can I model that? That's super powerful. I hope that all of you just caught that gold nugget there, because you don't have to be a victim of your past. You don't have to be a victim of your culture. You can make a decision based on what you desire, what you want, and how you want to help others be able to get what they desire and what they want. Super powerful. Thank you. So because of that change in your mindset, I know you are experiencing a lot different experience now, a lot different circumstances now. Do you want to talk a little bit about how things changed from that moment forward?
So now I know that when I desire something or want a change, a positive change in a direction, whether it's for my health or relationship or my finances or business, that it really starts with that desire and that vision. And then I go make it happen. And it sounds really simple. It's not always easy because there's a lot of inner stuff that needs to shift first before we see it on the outside. And that inner stuff, that inner space is really the bulk of what I help people with, because that's where over 95% of our results come from. Might even be closer to 100%, because if we don't have that, like I spent a good number of years kind of thinking that it was all the marketing and just, massive action, but I wasn't taking the action in a certain way. And I was kind of spinning my wheels and burning myself out as a young beginning entrepreneur. And now I know that there's a better way. So what I do now is to have that vision, have that clarity, and then I get to work right away on the inner stuff. So the paradigm shifting, the mindset shifting. And it's not just like a once and done. I've made a major transition when I had that my back against the wall moment, and I'm continually shifting my paradigm, because the things that had led me to my first 6 figures, which was a major breakthrough at the time, is not the thing that has led to the multiple or, and then beyond. So at each level, I'm really looking to make that quantum leap, even with my health, with my fitness, for example. I was on a certain program and that was going really well, but then I could feel, okay, there's a plateau there. So to break through that plateau, so whatever that plateau is for you or your listeners, there's going to be a new way, a better way of doing it. And so we want to identify what that is and then get to work on shifting it so that you're not being continually pulled back by the old programming, but to break that old programming and replace it with new programming of a new, more beneficial mindset. And then the external manifestation starts to show themselves, like in your body, in the wonderful relationships, in your business, in your finances. So that's basically the process I take myself through, and I love helping to guide others through.
I love that. So kind of going back and repeating, I think what you said as far as like steps go is, first of all, you ask yourself, what do I desire and what I want? And you decide to give yourself a raise. And as you're giving yourself a raise, when you're raising yourself up, it's 5% strategy and 95% going inside and seeing what needs to change, with the mindset, getting all that taken care of. And then the final step, which we don't really need to do anything about, it's just the natural result, right? Of all that work that you're doing, the 5% strategy and the 95% inner work, the result is going to be the external physical manifestation of what you desire and want.
You got it. That's beautiful. And I will add, there are 3 components in terms of the inner workings, like how to really shift at the paradigm mindset level. And I love to go in deeper on this with my training. So if anyone is interested, I have a free masterclass training on this. So there are 3 pillars, and the mistake that I made in the beginning was I had none of the pillars going for me. So it's kind of just doing it all wrong. Even though I thought I was reading the right books, watching the right videos, scouring YouTube or whatever. So pillar number 1 is you want to work with a proven system. Pillar number 2 is mentorship. This was huge for me because I was trying to do it by myself. I was like, I'm smart. I know how to learn things. I'll just learn my way out of this. I'll just read all the right books. And it just wasn't cutting it. And it's because what a great mentor will help you do is to help identify your potential and see it and believe it before you even recognize it and internalize it and fully believe it yourself. And the reason I'm able to help others to do that is because I just don't have their same baggage of their paradigms or their hangups. And so when someone tells me that, okay, so you want this, I believe it and I see that as done. And usually there are layers of why someone doesn't fully believe that yet. And so we unpack all those layers. And then the other thing a great mentor will help with is catching the blind spots. And we all have them. I had them for sure. Having someone's guidance to see what those blind spots are is so helpful, because otherwise you're kind of in this bubble of not really seeing outside of it. So everything you think and all your beliefs will make perfect sense to you. Like, well, of course I can't do that thing because I can't afford it. I can't have that level of strength or flexibility because I'm too whatever, old or too young. And so you come up with these false beliefs, and beliefs they're beautiful because you can change them. You're not your beliefs. You can actually change them. So when I help to show that your mind is an instrument, it's a tool, it's really powerful. And then the third pillar is working within a supportive environment. So the people you surround yourself with, so we have a community, and also the environment that you're creating for yourself. So those are the three pillars. And I was without all three of them and just kind of struggling and not even treading waters. But when I did get those three in place, it was almost like magic. Like the shift that happened was within a handful of months. So it does not have to take as many years as it took to form those habits and patterns and mindsets. It can turn around when you have those three things in place. Yeah.
Well, thank you. I was thinking the same thing. I'm glad that you said it. I was thinking as you're going through those three pillars, I was like, yeah, she didn't have any of those. So you were trying to learn yourself out of it, your way out of it. You were looking at YouTube videos, you were reading books, you were, trying to do it all yourself. So you didn't have that supportive environment other than just this, written or videos or whatever. You didn't have the mentor and you didn't have the proven system. You were trying to figure the system out on your own. So there was a pivotal moment, and going back to your mom, and when she was in intensive care in those final days, I know that you had a really spiritual moment. And I'm going to let you tell the story of that, because I feel like for me, I've had many of those pivotal moments myself, and it has made all the difference. It just allows you to be open to a new way of doing things. And so I'd love to have you share that.
Sure. I feel like whenever we have this human experience where we kind of almost don't even know which way to turn, whether it's feeling like, I had my back against the wall, or my mom was going through her process of dying. She was transitioning. I did not have any kind of close encounter with death and passing prior to hers. And I was young. I was in my early 20s at that time. It was amazing. I remember actually going to almost daily yoga classes and diving into the yoga more intensely than ever before. And that was like a pillar of strength, a space where I was able to calm my body and my mind and soul. And so I think through that, I ended up being more open and receptive. So I remember walking down to the waterfront and being by the lake and just having this moment of peace and knowing that, oh, there is much more. Oh, we are not, it's not just a physical flesh experience that we're having here, that we are spiritual beings having a physical experience. Now, I didn't have that language at that time in my 20s, but that's exactly what I was feeling. And just knowing it was this, I guess, like this spiritual awakening, this trust that I am being guided, that I am protected, that all of this is ultimately for some good and a lot of good. It was very interesting. So it was almost like a direct spiritual connection. So those lessons didn't come from a preacher or a book or a church service, or, it was like direct and this knowing. And I ended up feeling like, oh my gosh, I want to explore this further and deeper, which I eventually did a number of years later in my spiritual growth and evolution. But just that it was like this seed that was planted, this knowing, it helped to bring a lot of peace with my mom's transition, with my personal transitions, with my life and career and family and everything. So that was definitely a pivotal moment.
Oh, amazing. What I'm hearing is that it helped you in so many different ways. It helped you, like you mentioned, with the passing of your mom, that transition.
Mm-hmm.
And also, I know that, having that realization that there was something beyond just the
Mm-hmm.
physical opened you to, I think you called it divine coordination. This
Mm-hmm.
idea that there could be things working outside of just yourself, that you weren't just alone, this person trying to figure it out yourself, that there were other forces and other beings or opportunities or whatever out there that could work in your favor.
Totally. Mm-hmm.
And so, as far as like finding that first mentor and finding the proven system and that support system that you had, I think you mentioned that beyond, after that time, after that pivotal moment, that all of these resources started showing up for you. Do you want to tell us a little bit about that?
Oh, sure. Well, as you were talking, I was reminded of being in the intensive care unit at the hospital, and I felt this incredible lightness and almost buoyancy when I would go visit my mom. And it's usually a pretty sad environment, heavy, dark. And I felt none of that. I just felt super light and happy to be with her, and was cherishing every moment. I could see, which doctors and nurses were the healers. I just felt so in tune and in touch. And that actually informed me of my desire to help people with their health. So then I became a naturopathic doctor, and I remember bringing my daughter with me to the open house, and she was just super calm and happy. And I just felt like, this is a sign, this is confirmation that I'm on the right track. So then fast forward a number of years later, I ended up, working with one of my main mentors at the time. And we developed a very close relationship, so much so that he wrote the foreword to my book. And was really super encouraging. It was so interesting. Like, he went from this person in a movie that I saw, and I'm physically like meeting him in person, having lunch with him and calling each other, sending messages on the phone. And I'm like, what is this dream life that I've stepped into? And for sure, I have been guided. And I've also, I believe we all are. I don't think I'm the only one. I believe every single person is guided and supported. And the difference is how closely are we listening? And are we open to hearing the guidance and the messages and seeing the signs and then acting on them? I mean, there's so many other examples, but for sure, it's that feeling. So hopefully this reminds anyone who's listening that they too are also guided, and it's often just a simple matter of asking and then receiving.
Yeah, I think that second part that you said, receiving, because a lot of people are open to the idea that we have a spiritual connection and that
Mhm.
there are forces greater than us, that can work in our favor. But I think a lot of times we might even be receiving the inspiration, but we shove it aside thinking that it's,
Mhm.
not important, or is that really inspiration, or is that me? just thinking of that or whatever, but to accept that divine coordination. I love that phrase that you used when we were talking before, divine coordination,
Mhm.
that everything is being coordinated in your favor, and it's available as soon as
Mhm.
we allow it, as soon as we're open to it and receive it.
I mean, we're talking about the miracle of life here, right? Like there's so much that had to be coordinated for us to even exist. If we think of, ultimately who our parents were and how did they come together in this world of billions of people? Like it's a miracle. Like if that is not evidence of divine coordination, I don't know what is. And then just, the miracle of our bodies and the fact that we don't even have to think about it. And as long as we don't interfere and get in the way, it usually just runs itself and is healthy. So same with abundance too, right? As long as we keep the channels open, free and clear of giving and receiving, it usually takes care of itself. Mm-hmm.
Thank you. I want to make sure that we give everyone a way to contact you, because I know there's a lot of people that would love to reach out to you at this point.
Mm-hmm.
And you've given me your website, which is serenityiris.com. And we'll put that in the description so that everybody knows how to spell that exactly. It's just SERENITYIRIS.com, your name.com. You also mentioned a free masterclass at the beginning, and I believe they can find
Mm-hmm.
that free masterclass on your website. Is that right?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah. Just go
awesome.
to the website. Mm-hmm.
Awesome. So go to that website. You'll get that free masterclass with the 3 pillars that she was talking about. Serenity has also given you her email address, hello@serenityiris.com. And so if you want to just reach out to her, if you've been really touched by her story, or, just really want to find out more about what she does or how you could possibly work with her, then that would be a great way to reach out to her, and we'll have all of her social media handles and everything in the description. Before we end our episode today, our interview today, Serenity, I would like to ask just one last question for you to give a bit of advice to someone, maybe if they're at the bottom of that, they're in that learning space where they've maybe been trying to learn their way out of a situation and have not really been open to that divine coordination at this point. What would be some advice to help people transition into that?
I'll share what I did, which was I really tried to muscle my way through it, learn my way out of it. And it just wasn't working. When you feel like you're spinning your wheels and you're kind of banging your head against the wall. So I believe what happened was a deep spiritual surrender. It's almost like a breathing out, like, okay, what else? What else? Because I could use some help right now. So there was a deep asking and almost a sigh of relief when I did start to see the signs and then follow them, because it was like, oh, I'm a co-creative partner in this. I don't have to do this all alone. So I'm sure that most people, if they're at all interested and connected with the divine, have had some kind of experience, and it could be small, but there's no big or small. Remember, it's just our perception that makes it so. If you are deeply asking or praying, sending that message outward, also be willing and ready and able to receive. So receive the help, receive the guidance, the intuition, the insights. Be prepared to take that inspired action. So not just like crazy, massive action without the spirit, the inspiration. That's why I always talk about, take that next inspired step, but that surrender. I would say, if someone's just at the bottom and you've tried it on your own, just remembering that it doesn't have to be you and you alone, but you are the creative expression. Like you are the one who does have to move your feet, take the action, but that you are guided and supported along the way.
Beautiful. I love that. When you said something about the sigh of relief, I actually felt that within my body. And
Uh-huh.
I think when we feel like we have to do it ourselves, it's like this heaviness, this like tenseness that we have inside of ourselves, like we're, almost ready, like fight or flight all the time. But then if we can just even logically, if we could just accept the idea that we don't have to do it all ourselves and just give that sigh of relief. I mean, there's just a difference in the physiology of your body that happens with that. And it just feels, you laughed right after you said that. And I thought, there's just a feeling of joy and laughter. Laughter is what I want to feel. When I have that sigh of relief, it's like, yes, I don't have to do it all. Like, how crazy was that to think that I had to do it all? And so that change in the physiology, I feel like could be the key to then allow some inspiration to come in, some of that divine coordination to happen. I love that. And absolutely, we are, we're co-creators, and we are the physical aspect of taking action on those next steps. All of you who have followed me know that that's really important to me with your daily GPS. Taking action on your inspired shortcut is absolutely necessity. So thank you so much, Serenity. This has been just a wonderful interview. I have gained so much from it. I'm super excited to go on your website and get that free masterclass that you talked about and to learn for myself. I'm always open to new information that I can gain, and especially where it aligns with what I believe, which is, that we do have access to that divine coordination. So, and thank you to our listeners for joining us today on Get Inspired and Live in Your Power. And we look forward to having you back again on another episode very soon.